Hello, everyone. Good morning, depending on where you are. Out here in Northern California, it's 11:05 on a glorious weekend. Welcome to today's presentation. I'm happy to have a couple of great friends who are going to be speaking about the vestibular system, nervous system training for movement efficiency. So a couple of housekeeping items. You've noticed that you've all been muted in order for us to eliminate any background noise. So bear with us. And also, if you wish to ask any questions from the presenters today, there's a chat feature on your screen. Use that, please, to pose your questions. And there's a Q&A session that we're going to have for about 10 minutes or so towards the end of the presentation. So we'll get through all your questions, no doubt about it. The second thing is that I should say is that this presentation is made possible through a generous grant from the Reeve Foundation. They've been able to support all of our presentations for the last several months, so we're grateful to them. Finally, one last thing, we are recording this session, so if any of you need to jump off the call or the presentation at any time, no worries. We'll make the video available to you on Monday. We're going to send an email to anyone that registered for the presentation with a full video of this presentation. So don't stress out over needing to jump off. So that's everything that I want to share with you. Without further ado, let me jump into introducing our two presenters, Rachel and Erin. So let's start with Rachel. She's a nationally certified Pilates teacher, a certified strength and conditioning specialist, movement teacher specializing in working with people with neurological deficits, especially spinal cord injury, and is currently pursuing her license in massage therapy. Erin has a doctorate of physical therapy and is a board certified neurologic clinical specialist. She's currently a physical therapist at UCSF and has worked extensively with individuals with spinal cord injury. Both of them, both Erin and Rachel have. So I welcome both of them. Ladies, it's all yours to pick up from here on.
Okay, there we go.
All right. Sorry about that.
That's all right, no worries. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming today. We're just going to start by doing a very brief review of the anatomy of the vestibular system and what it does when it's functioning at its best. You could do a whole course, a whole lecture series on just the vestibular system. So this is just a little taste. We're going to give you a little bit of background, and then Rachel's going to go in to give you just ways you can kind of keep your vestibular system primed so that your movement is optimal. So the vestibular system refers to the inner ear system in general. So when you hear vestibular, think inner ear. And then Rachel, you will click, there you go. You can just have the full slide go, thanks. So the actual vestibular organ has two main parts to it. The semicircular canals, which are highlighted in that like reddish color, and then the otolith organs, which are the utrilis and the sacculus, which are the gray areas near there. So the semicircular canals are what kind of manage your rotational movement. So if your head is turning side to side, that's a rotational movement. Linear movement is when your head is going up and down. And so each of these canals are, the semicircular canals are filled with a fluid. So as your head is turning, that fluid's kind of swishing around in there. And if your head's turning, you have canals on both sides, we want them to be kind of going at the same speed. So when something is disrupting your vestibular system and any of that feedback is off on one side, even like the tiniest millisecond, you're gonna feel that you're gonna feel a little bit dizzy, you're gonna feel those vestibular symptoms. And then with the otolith organs, those are your linear movements, that's forward and backward. The mechanism there is a little bit different. We have these basically little tiny crystals that sit in there, and it's almost like a leveler in your brain. So if you're trying to like hang a picture and you like have to hang a leveler because you're like, that looks pretty straight, but I'm not really sure. Basically, that's what's going on in your inner ear. So if your head's mildly tilted at all, your body's gonna feel that. And then the amount of feedback and coordination that's going between your vestibular system, between your eyes, between your eye movements, between the vision that's coming in, your hearing, your sensation, your actual motor control. It's constantly back and forth yeah, and to the point that like neuroanatomists still don't fully understand like some of these things and why they happen at this speed. So very complex, but that's a very brief introduction into the anatomy of our vestibular system. Rachel, can you go to the next slide? Thanks. This is Bay Area girl Nancy Kerrigan, I believe. So if her vestibular system was not intact, she would probably have unfortunately vomited all over the ice and not been able to medal in that year's Olympics. So a few of the ways that we use our vestibular system every single day when we're not even thinking about it is one, our vestibular ocular reflex. So Nancy here, when she's doing her spinning, they teach ice skaters something called sighting. So every time she's spinning around, she is looking at an object that's not moving to help kind of regulate that sensation of spinning. So your brain is giving you the sense you're spinning, you're spinning, you're spinning. She's using her eye feedback to stabilize that gaze, to almost override that reflex of like, my environment is not moving, like I'm the one that's moving. So something you can override. But overall VOR, and Rachel's going to go into this a little bit later too about some specific stuff we can work on, but that's stabilizing your gaze during head movement. So naturally in the world when you're just moving around, if you're turning your head to the right, your eyes are naturally going to go to the left to keep your gaze focused on whatever you were looking at before. And that's something that you're not really thinking about, your body's just doing that constantly. It is something you can override. If you're like, I'm going to turn my head right and look to the right, you can override it. But if you're not really thinking about it, your body's just going to have that reciprocal opposite reaction. Another thing that the vestibular system is very important for is a righting reflex. So another thing, if you're not really thinking about it, if you just start to turn your body to the side, your head kind of naturally tilts up. Your body always naturally wants to be oriented to upright and midline. So if you're kind of shifting, your head's going to naturally turn, your eyes are going to always try to orient so you are upright. So that's something you might notice as well. And then as a result, balance. This is all kind of attributing to balance in general. So balance is a result of all of your sensory systems working together. We've kind of added on to this each week, excuse me. So it's your visual, your sensory, and your vestibular. The visual and the sensory system are going to react a little bit faster. Your vestibular system, and when I say like a little bit slower, it's like nanoseconds behind, but it's what's integrating all of that information and then feeding it back into your body so your body can react. So very complex system. That is your very brief introduction to it. And most of us have vestibular systems that are functioning totally appropriately. If you have something that is disrupted in your vestibular system, you'll experience things like significant dizziness, and what you might hear called vertigo. So it's a sensation of spinning, less than like the dizziness of, your blood pressure is low, or you stood up too quickly, or, one of those sensations. You might experience things where it's difficult to read a little bit. You might get exceptionally car sick, exceptionally motion sick. None of these things necessarily mean anything is like horribly wrong, but if it's disruptive, these are things that we can kind of prime and optimize a little bit. And if any of these, and Rachel will go into this as well, but if any of these exercises are causing some of these symptoms, just take a break, dial it back. We don't want to really aggravate and escalate aggressive symptoms. And if you ever get to the point where you feel like your vestibular system is very impaired, you're having some of those symptoms, there are physical therapists who are also very specialized in evaluating and treating some of these disorders. But for today's purpose, this is just a great thing that is sometimes ignored, and we can really optimize and help with the efficiency of our movement. So I will hand it off to Rachel.
Alrighty, awesome. Okay, let me make sure it's clicking through. Yeah, and I just wanted to add one more thing. For the righting reflex, and for those of you that were at, just make sure I'm unmuted. Yeah, for those of you that were at, I forget which workshop, it might have just been last workshop, the visual system, I was talking about, and maybe it was the posture one too, but I had a photo on the slideshow of a house that had a crooked foundation, and then the house therefore had to be built upward in kind of a crooked fashion. So we'll see that sometimes, and some of you might experience this where you might have a rotation or a hike or a curve of some sort in your body, and where that would maybe naturally pull your head one way. Because of this writing reflex, you're going to want to be more in an upright fashion. We also see this with things like scoliosis and that sort of structural differences. So just something to keep in mind, that this is something that also takes place not just maybe when you're tipping or falling over or something like that, but it's just also a postural thing. Your head is always going to upright itself. So how can we work through the rest of the body to maybe get out some of the crinks in your posture? And we talked about that in previous sessions, but I'm planning to do another one that brings all of this together. So stay posted for that. Okay, so for those of you that joined my our visual workshop last month, this is just a review, but I'm gonna go over it again because I know we have some new folks on here. So the brain has a few very important jobs. First and foremost, our brain is meant to keep us alive and keep us safe. So when information is coming into our body, whether that's from the outside world or our inside landscape, it comes up and it hits our lower mammalian brain first. And the job of that brain is, am I alive and am I safe? As that information continues to travel upward into more of the neocortex, more of our thinking, planning brain, the brain has three main jobs. So it receives a sensory input. And again, that's something maybe that you're seeing, something you're feeling, something from the outside world that can also, again, be coming up from the inside world. Your brain is going to take that information and it's going to integrate it. It's going to make a decision, and then it's going to create a motor output. So in very, very simplistic terms, this is what the brain is constantly doing all of the time. So how does this then relate to movement and to more efficient movement and to maybe getting rid of some of the dizziness, motion sickness, vertigo, whatever it is that you're feeling? And if you're not experiencing any of those sensations, how can we still improve this system to then improve your movement? So most of the exercise and wellness health world focuses, let me just go to the next slide here. Okay, so focuses on the proprioceptive. It focuses on your musculoskeletal system, that third rung of the pyramid that you see there. But what we're talking about with last workshop with the visual system and with this workshop with the vestibular system is how can we pull in those two systems and integrate them in a really cohesive way to then create that more efficient motor output to whatever it is you're doing, whether you're reaching for a coffee mug, whether you're looking behind you because someone called your name. So anything like that, simple and complex movements. So this neural hierarchy is again how that brain is taking in the sensory input. So when we are taking in sensory input, we like to think that maybe all of the signals coming into the brain are created equally, but they're not. So the visual system always will take precedent. For those that are able to see, the visual system is always going to take precedent. That's like the president, the CEO of the company. Second, coming down from that is going to be your vestibular system. So whether or not something is off with the visual system, the vestibular system is like the vice president, and then your proprioceptive, your musculoskeletal system, how you move your day throughout your day to day, that's the third rung. So this is important because, again, we mainly focus on movement, but we're going to be pulling in some more of these vestibular drills to see how that can make your movement more efficient, perhaps more pain-free, maybe more fluid. Maybe you'll notice that you're going to have a greater range of motion with whatever movement it is we're doing. And we're going to go through a whole movement series after and do a check and a recheck in after we do before and after we do some of these vestibular drills. But I want you to think about this as imagine that, and I used this map metaphor in the last workshop. So imagine you're trying to get to a destination and you put a destination into your phone and you start to get mixed signals. So I'm getting one signal from one satellite that's kind of blurry. I'm getting another visual from another satellite way the heck far away from me that's also kind of blurry. I'm getting one that's zoomed out of the Bay Area, and then I'm getting one that zoomed in to where is actually maybe where I want to go in Oakland. So this is something that we call sensory mismatch, which is what's happening when we experience any of those dizzy, nauseous kind of symptoms, when maybe you move too quickly or you spin in your chair too quickly or something of that sort. So again, going in line with how can we improve the quality of that sensory input coming into the system? How can we make those images, those GPS images, really clear and precise so that now I know exactly where I'm going to my destination? I'm not going to get lost and confused and frustrated. I'm not going to make a bunch of wrong turns. And then remember how that presents in the body too. I mean, how many people here have ever gotten lost because their map GPS system went out on them? And how many people maybe started swearing or getting really frustrated and angry and maybe started to drive slower? So this is really similar to how we move in a day-to-day example. If one of my systems is slightly off, whether I'm aware of it or not, I might be more cautious. I might be frustrated when I do something and I come up and I get dizzy. I might perceive certain movements as threatening. And so I move slower, I'm nervous, I tighten my body, I experience more pain in certain areas, any symptoms like that. So the point of all of this work is that whether you think something might be off with one of those systems or not, we're just trying to sharpen the quality of that sensory input coming into the brain so that we can create more fluid, more efficient, more pain-free movement in whatever that looks like. And then just one more thing to that. So the reason that you'll start to feel maybe nauseous, like you want to vomit, like you're getting dizzy, from some of the movements that we either might be doing or you've done in the past, whether you're driving in a car and you get motion sickness or something. So that's the brain sending a signal to your, that's the brain receiving two different signals from your visual system and from your vestibular system. So that's kind of like getting a bunch of images on that map that you see there. So the brain is getting two different images. The brain is confused. The brain is trying to tell the body, stop whatever it is you're doing and change your behavior. So the brain is telling the body to take a different course of action. And the quickest way it's going to do that is to make you feel nauseous, to make you feel dizzy, something, because that will immediately stop what you're doing. So again, just trying to help out to match those signals and to integrate those signals more so for the brain. Okay. So we're gonna jump right into more of the movement side of this. We're gonna start with our typical body scan, kind of our drop-in, and then we're gonna go into our check and recheck in that we've been doing for these past 4 workshops. So again, just as a reminder for these reassessment movements, we're using this as a tool so that you're going to be doing some of these movements like a shoulder shrug, an overhead arm raise, a neck rotation, thoracic rotation. So I'm going to take you through all of the ones that you see listed there. And as we're doing these movements, I want you to stay really dropped into your body. What is your range of motion? Is there pain? Maybe I tilt my head one way and I'm feeling a little bit of tightness. How fluid is that? What is my speed of movement? Am I moving slow and cautiously because I have that blurry map GPS signals being sent to my brain, or do I feel good doing this faster movement? So you're just noticing what those movements feel like. We're going to go through a handful of vestibular drills or exercises, and then we're going to reassess by doing that same list of exercises you see there. So just again, as a precautionary thing, we're assuming that if you're doing these movements, you've checked in with some kind of a medical professional. It's okay to be doing, once we get into the vestibular work, it's okay if you start to feel a little dizzy. That means that you've met your edge, okay? So once we meet our edge, that's when we're gonna back off. So once you start to feel that dizziness, go ahead and back off, take a break. Sometimes closing the eyes is helpful, tuning into your breath, grabbing some water, anything like that. But just know that if you start to feel some of those symptoms, it's not a bad thing. We just don't wanna go too far past that. We wanna stop and let the body relax. Okay, so let's see, I'm going, just so you all can see me, I'm gonna stop sharing. Making sure I'm doing this right. Oops, sorry, give me 1 second, everyone. Okay, so I'm gonna back up here. So I want you to come to a seated or standing. I know we've got some standing athletes. I know we also have some blind and visually impaired athletes on here as well. So just coming to a seated or a standing position here. And we're just going to start with the body scan. So I'll have you close your eyes. And I want you to start by dropping into your breath. You can even put both hands over your low belly here. And without judging, I just want you to sense where that breath is coming into your body. Is it staying in your neck? Is it coming into your chest? Or are you able to get that breath all the way into your low belly? And wherever your breath is, again, without judgment, just invite that breath to come a little lower. Remember, this doesn't necessarily mean a bigger breath. It just means we're using that diaphragm to get more of a belly breath. And noticing if that's easy or hard for you. Noticing how slow or fast your breath might be here. I'm going to encourage you to breathe through your nose if you're able to. So lips are closed. And then I just want you to find a body scan. We'll start at the very top of the head. And as you move down through the back of your neck, over the tops of your shoulders, you're just noticing what in your body feels good to you today, what feels warmed up, what feels loose and easeful, what feels maybe a little sticky and or painful, and what parts of your body feel quiet, like they're not speaking to you very much. And you're just working your way down with that body scan, down out through the arms and the hands, down through the chest, the mid back, the low back. How is your belly feeling today? How are your hips feeling today? And if noticing these sensations, or if you don't have much of these sensations as we go lower, I want you to ask yourself, if I could sense my hips, if I could sense my feet, what might that feel like? So just inviting a little bit of freedom here if you can't feel that. Working your way down through your legs, your knees, your calves, all the way out through your feet. Coming back to your breath. Has your breath slowed at all? Are you still able to belly breathe? Yeah, let's take one more inhale, one more exhale, and we'll open the eyes. Okay, we're just gonna find a quick release just to kind of warm up the senses of the body. So fingertips are gonna come to your head and you're gonna give your whole scalp a really amazing head scratch. If it's hard for you to use your fingers, you can use your knuckles. And if it's hard for you to use your knuckles, you might have to have a friend or a family member do this one for you. But I just want you to get all the way over your head, along your hairline. If you feel like you have a sensitive spot, you can spend a little bit more time in it. And then go ahead and relax. And again, just notice if anything feels different there. Fingertips, again, or knuckles are going to come to right below your collarbones. And you're going to find this gentle tapping underneath your collarbones on both sides of your body. And I want you to find a hum. So again, if you can do this one with lips closed, and you're going to go all the way to the end of that hum. When you get to the end of that hum, breathe in through your nose and then do 2 more hums like that. So you're just tapping and humming. You can hum a song if you'd like. Don't worry, nobody can hear you. And when you get all the way to the end of that 3rd hum, go ahead and relax. Again, just notice if there's any difference there. Okay, let's do some of our movement check-ins. So we'll just start with let's start with shoulder shrugs. So just shrugging the shoulders up. Let's see if you can do that on an inhale and then down on an exhale. Shrugging up on an inhale and down on an exhale. Keep going with that. I'm going to shed a layer so you can see me move a little bit easier here. And again, you're noticing, okay, how is this feeling? How is my range of motion today? Does it feel stickier? Does maybe one side go higher than the other? You're just noticing. Okay, coming more to the neck. So we're going to find a head tilt to the left and a head tilt to the right. Just comparing the difference between the 2 sides, if you're able to do this one. Remember, some of these movements are challenging for you to do. Feel free to use someone that might assist you or to stay with some of the movements that are more upper body. I'm taking you through this whole spectrum of movements because I know we have a lot of abilities on this call. So just use whatever movement is a check-in for you. When I do these for myself, I only do 2 movements. I do an overhead arm raise and I do shoulder rotation. So just use what feels the best for you. We're going to find cervical rotation. So turning just your head and your neck to the left, just your head and neck to the right. For those of you that are fused or have hardware in your neck, you will probably be skipping this one. Okay, and again, just noticing ease of movement there. Hands come out in front of you, palms together, arms are straight. If this is hard for you to do, you can also cross arms over the chest. Rotate your whole body to the left and to the right. And just noticing how that thoracic rotation is feeling for you today. How is your breath when you rotate? Let's bring that right into shoulder internal external rotation. So you've got scarecrow arms or goalpost arms pivoting, the hands up and down over the elbows. And you're just noticing, I always like to look for this one because I've got one side that's easier than the other. If that's hard for you to do, you can also do something lower or closer to your body. Okay, so just giving you a few options. Let's see, what am I skipping here? I know I'm skipping a couple. Yes, for my standing athletes, you might be doing a squat, okay? You might be doing a hip hinge, a flat back hip hinge. If you're on the floor, for any of my floor athletes, you might be doing a push-up as a test, retest. You can really use any movement you want to do these check-ins, okay? But we do these check-ins to see, are the drills that we're gonna do really helping? So just keep that in mind. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen again to do some of the vestibular work. So just give me a moment here. Okay. Okay, so coming now to the vestibular work. So I'm gonna warm you up with a visual movement. For those of you that took my visual, that took the workshop last month, this might look familiar. Before I do vestibular work with anyone, myself included, it's always a good idea to do visual work where the head is staying steady and we're moving the eyes before we jump into vestibular where we start moving the head in all of the directions. It's just the vestibular can sometimes be more aggressive for most people, so I just like to do one where the head is stable and we're moving your eyes. So for those of you that are able to hold a pencil, we'll just do maybe one or two of these. I'm gonna have you grab a pencil or a pen. If a fork or a cooking utensil is easier for you to hold, you can grab that too. For those of you that can't hold something, I want you to pick 8 points around you, one on the ceiling, one on the upper right ceiling, one to your right, lower right, directly below you, lower left. Oh, I just realized I'm mirroring you. You know what I'm talking about. Full left and upper left, okay? So just pick 8 points around you for your eyes to move in a full circle around you. For those of you that have a pencil, you're gonna hold that pencil arm's distance in front of you, and you're gonna bring, without moving your head, bring the pencil as high as you can, just your eyes go up, where you still see one pencil and where that pencil is still clear for you, okay? Again, without moving your head, you're gonna track your eyes on that pencil in a big circle all the way around you as your head stays steady and just your eyes are moving. We're basically giving the eyes a really big range of motion warm up right now. If you want to pass the pencil off to your other hand, you can. If you want to use your thumb, you can do that if that's easier for you. I want you to do let's do maybe 4 or 5 circles in one direction and then 4 or 5 circles in the other direction. Try not to cheat with your head. Try to keep your head steady. I'm just gonna watch people here, make sure we're looking good. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so you're doing 4 or 5 circles like that in each direction just to warm up the eyes. Notice if maybe parts of that circle are easier or harder for you and your eyes to track. Do your eyes start to feel watery? Do your eyes start to itch? These are all normal things that might happen. Yeah, take your time. When you're done, I'll just have you set the pencil down and maybe look straight forward just so I know folks are done. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so great. Let's jump right into the next one. So Aaron was talking about the vestibular ocular reflex, also known as the VOR. So let me make sure I have this. Okay, good. So we're gonna start, so this one, remember, is for gaze stabilization. Really important with your everyday, you're walking, you're driving, you're in your chair, you're moving around, you're reaching for things, whatever it is that you're doing. You might not even be aware, but our eyes are stabilizing on something as our head is bouncing, moving, turning, and everything. So this is a really important reflex. Also, extra important for those of you that maybe have had a concussion or some kind of a head injury in the past, maybe even a car accident where there was an impact to the body or something like that. So just things to think about, things to notice. We're not gonna go through a really specific VOR assessment. We're just gonna make this more general based. So again, you're gonna be holding this pencil directly out in front of you, arm's distance, looking at the tip of the pencil right between the eyes. If this is hard for you to do, you could pick a spot on the wall or a painting or something in front of you, preferably keeping it maybe within 3 feet of you. So even if it's the laptop that you're looking at right now. And you're gonna start to move your head. We're gonna just start slowly, and I want you to move at your own pace. Keeping your eyes now locked on the tip of that pencil, you're gonna start to shake your head no. So shaking your head left to right. The idea is to keep that pencil clear so that you only see one pencil, but to move your head as quickly as you can from left to right, keeping that pencil really clear in front of you. If when you start to feel dizzy, please take a break. You can close your eyes, you can grab some water. We're looking for what we call a startle effect, which is maybe where you start to get dizzy, maybe you feel a little nauseous, maybe your eyes get watery. Mine always get itchy when I do this because we're bringing more blood flow. The eyes are moving like they haven't moved before. Yeah, I also recommend for those of you that are wearing glasses, if you're able to take your glasses off and still clearly see that pencil, try to do that. Remember the glasses, and I'm wearing contacts, and if I could take my contacts out right now, I would. But remember, the glasses and the contacts are just an aid. They're kind of a crutch for the eyes, and if we can do it without them, we're going to try and do it without them. Okay, so you're noticing as you're doing that one, is this easy? Is this hard? Do I find that my eyes keep darting away from me and looking at something maybe behind the pencil? Am I dizzy? Am I nauseous? If you feel any of those things, I want you to stop. In fact, let's all take a break right now. We're going to wait at least 30 seconds. I'm just going to demo the next one. In between these VOR movements, we have 4 movements we're going to do in total. You always want to take a minimum of 30 seconds just to make sure the body resets, the body comes down into more of a relaxed state after, quote unquote, your startle, whatever that might have been for you. So I'm just going to show you the next one before you jump into it. Maybe just watch me. So again, holding that pencil out, I'm holding it horizontally now because now I'm going to nod my head up and down. Same idea. Eyes stay locked on the tip of that pencil, and I'm moving my head as big as I can up, as low as I can down, where I still see one pencil, where that pencil still stays clear, okay? So go ahead and start to do that if you haven't already. Keeping your eyes on that one spot. Challenging the range of motion that your head and your neck can move. Remember, if any of these are challenging for you for range of motion, for pain, or any of those reasons, just stay with whatever movements you are able to do. Maybe that's going to be a smaller head movement here. That's totally fine. Doing a small head movement like that is still getting your eyes and your head and that VOR working. If you are doing a smaller reflex, you can pull the pencil in closer to you. Yeah, so you can play with that a little bit. Let's all take another break. Okay, 30 seconds here. Just let the body relax. Notice if there were any of those startles that may have come up for you. I'm going to show you the next one, so let me show you this first. Make sure I'm not jumping ahead. Yes, okay. So again, holding that pencil out. So now we're going to find a diagonal. So I'm going to mirror you here. So I'm going to go up, left, down, right. Up, left, down, right. I want you to think of your head as doing the disco. If you want to put on some disco music, you can, but the head is just moving on that diagonal up one corner, down into the next corner. Okay, so when you're ready, go for it. Just gonna watch people here. Remember, eyes stay locked on that thing. Challenge your range of motion. I like to pretend like I'm glaring at somebody when I'm doing this one. We all have that head tilt and glare when we're not too excited about something. Yeah, really try to get this on the diagonal. I see a couple people that are just going straight up and down. Really try to bring your head, there we go. Try to bring your head more into that diagonal movement. Once you feel that startle, you're gonna stop. If you don't feel that startle, you're gonna see if you can either increase your speed or increase your range of motion with your head. Maybe instead of a small movement, you can do a really big movement, okay? Let's all take another break. I'm hoping everyone is doing okay. If you're really not feeling great, you're probably going to skip the rest of this. We just have one more direction. Watch me first so your system can settle a little bit. Now we're going to find disco going in the other direction. Up, right, down, left. Up, right, down, left. Okay. Same thing we just did. New diagonal. When you're ready, go for it. As you do this diagonal, notice, okay, Is this one harder than the other? Typically, people have one of these diagonals that is a little bit more challenging than the other diagonal. So what we're doing right now is we're moving the head, as Erin was talking about, those 3 semicircular canals. They're all oriented at a 90-degree angle from each other. So we're moving the head in all of those directions, challenging all 3 of those canals that you saw on the first slide. So we're just seeing, is one of those canals maybe need a little bit more practice than any of the other canals? And that can be for, one of those canals might be slightly off, or one of these movements might be slightly off for you for a whole various amount of reasons. But just noticing, did any one of those 4 movements we did trigger you a little bit quicker, feel a little bit harder for you? Okay, go ahead and relax if you haven't already stopped. Let's let the system settle. So for this next one, again, I'm just going to show you this. This is called Vor Cancellation, which means now our eyes focusing on the object are going to move with our body focusing on the object. Okay, so holding that pencil in front of you, and again, if you don't have a pencil, you can just be using points on the ceiling or in the room around you. And we're just going to start by holding that pencil out, or thumb. You're going to quickly move that pencil and head up, and try not to lose that pencil, and then move it back down. Eyes on the pencil, head and neck and eyes move up, and then move back down. So we're just isolating each of those movements a little bit more, but we're doing it in a cancellation, meaning that now I'm having to track my eyes with my head on that object. You're going to do 3 in each direction. 3 going up, 3 going up and to the left, kind of resetting in the center. 3 going directly to the left. And you can let your body spin with you too. 3 going down and to the left, 3 going straight down, down to the right, all the way to the right, and then up and to the right. Okay, so I just want you to take your time as you move through these, do 3 in each direction. Again, normally if we were making this an assessment, we would be a little bit more precise, and I would be in front of you if I were doing some kind of an intake, and I would be noticing, okay, you kind of had a hard time looking up and to the right and then fully to the left. And then we would play with that, we would bring it into your movement now. But for the purposes of, let's hit all of the canals, let's see what's tricky for you, and let's see how this then affects your movement. We're just making this more of an exercise as opposed to a full assessment. Yeah, so I still see people moving through that, so keep going. You're just doing 3 in each of those 8 directions there. When you've done all of those, I just want you to take a break. You can close your eyes remember, if at any point you got dizzy, close your eyes, grab some water if you'd like. I'm going to show you this next exercise. This is our last one. Let me make sure everyone can see me here. Yeah, we'll leave it on the screen. Yeah, okay, I'm hoping people can see me and I can exit out if you can't. I'm going to give you a few different variations. We're going to go into spinning. So some of you might have, as a little kid, you might have spun around, or if you've got kids or grandkids, you might notice they can twirl and tumble and spin and not get dizzy like we do as adults. Again, this is all part of the vestibular system. So spinning is just another way where we're exercising, quote unquote, that vestibular muscle. It's not really a muscle, but using that as a metaphor, we're working the vestibular system to see if that's going to create more of a efficient motor output. I'm going to give you 3 different ways that you can practice spinning. For my athletes that are seated, you're going to cross your arms over your chest. I'm just going to have you watch me do this one first. Moving your head and your body and your eyes, you're going to pull your body, drawing a circle with your torso as big as you can, bring your eyes with you. If that's slightly challenging for you, this can also just be a small movement with your head and your eyes going with you. This kind of a movement can definitely also make you a little dizzy. If you can do a bigger movement, do that. I want you to do an even number of spins in each direction. Start slow. Remember, the faster you go and the bigger you go, the harder this is on your vestibular system. So if you find you immediately get dizzy, maybe you shrink that movement. For those of you in an automatic chair, in a power chair that can spin, I'm going to give you one option here. You can spin in that chair, and as you spin around, your eyes are going with you. We're not doing something called spotting because we're challenging the vestibular system. You're bringing your eyes with you. Again, making sure that you do, spitting on my bear canister here, making sure that you do an even number in each direction. For my standing athletes, you're just going to be standing, and you can go as fast or as slow as you. Okay, I'm getting dizzy, so I'm going to stop. You get the idea. You're going to go as fast or slow as you can, starting with maybe 1, 2 circles in each direction. Well, I got really dizzy just then. And then going the other way. Okay. Okay. So once you've done however number of circles, I also want you to notice, was going in one direction harder for you? Okay, so just keep that in mind. Maybe that's the direction that we spend an extra little bit of time on when you bring this into your home, when you bring some of these exercises into your home program. For example, I do spins every morning. I do about 5 minutes of visual exercises, I spin, and then I call it a day because I don't need to be spinning all morning. So these are things you can build in. Just like we did, you can start with one visual warm-up like circles or the pencil push-ups from last workshop. You could go into some of the VOR work that we were just doing with head nods, head shakes, and then you could do a couple spins in each direction. It takes no more than 5 or 6 minutes. Okay, so now we're going to test our movement at the end. So let's see. In fact, I'm just gonna, we'll leave that. Okay, so let's come back to our recheck-in here. So I'm just gonna have you start with a shoulder shrug. Inhale to shrug up. Exhale to shrug down. Just noticing, does that feel any different than when I did it 15 minutes ago? It actually feels a little bit easier for me. Let's find the head tilts, tilting the head to the left, to the right. Is it more easeful? Is it faster? Is it less painful, less sticky? Fill in the blank. Cervical rotation, turning your head left, turning your head right. Did that improve in any of those categories? You can just go back and forth a couple times. Okay. Coming to a slightly bigger movement, so finding an overhead arm raise. Does this feel different for you in any way, shape, or form? How about shoulder internal, external rotation, goalpost arms up and down? Yep. Maybe some thoracic rotation, arms in front of you, elbows straight, rotating left and right. Did you get any more range of motion on that one? Sometimes I even notice it's actually easier to breathe when I rotate. So sometimes it's more subtle than other times. Let's see, what am I missing? For my standing athletes, you could be doing your squat or your sit to stand check-in. You could be doing your hip hinge, or you could be doing, for any of my athletes on the floor, a push-up, a bridge, anything like that. Okay, so I'm just gonna scroll through. I'm just curious for everybody. I want you to give me a thumbs up if your movement improved, a sideways thumb if it stayed the same, and a down thumb if it got worse. So for those of you that have your videos on, can I get a thumb reading from some of you? And if you're unsure, you could just do a sideways thumb. Yeah, Claudia, I see you. Nice, thank you. Okay. Yeah, I see mainly thumbs up and then some sideways thumbs. Yeah. And that's just something to experiment with. If your movement got worse, or if it stayed the same, then we're going to change the way that we did some of those drills, and we're going to keep playing with it. Okay, did that help my movement? And so on. So that's why that reassessment tool is really helpful, because it allows you to see this drill helped, this drill didn't help. And had we more time, perhaps we would have done that movement check-in after every single drill. But I just wanted to do a before and after for you there. Also, let's see, I think, did that stop screen share? Yeah, so that's it. I was going to put up my contact information. Let me just do that really quick. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. We're going to take questions. I just want to get this up just so people can see that. Okay, so feel free to contact us on any of those platforms. I actually just recently, there we go. I actually just recently launched my own website. That's at the very top, rachelarchon.com. So feel free to check that out. Sign up for the newsletter. There's some really good resources on there. And then you can see the list and the dates and the times for this continuing workshop series. I think that's it. Franklin, thank you so much for hosting this as always.
All right, and thank you, Rachel and Aaron. We have a couple of questions. First one, okay, don't laugh. My eyes were hurting when I was doing the eye exercises. Is that normal?
Yes. Yeah, that means you're doing it right. Yeah, so we talk about what almost feels like an eye strain, where if my eyes are, for example, maybe when we were doing those circles, that's when you were feeling it, and you were feeling like, wow, this is very challenging for my eyes to hit this range of motion going around me. I just call that eye strain. It's not, yes, that is normal. That means that you're pushing your eye range of motion. And as long as you can still see one of whatever the object is, and you don't start to go cross-eyed and see two objects, then that's fine. None of this is unsafe. But that eye strain is normal. And when you feel that startle, again, that startle is, wow, okay, I found my edge, and then maybe you can take a break. But it's not bad.
And one thing to add to the eye straining, so think about how often in your daily routine, especially now that we're all virtual, kind of staring straight ahead into our computer screens, you're not really getting to that end range. So your eye is controlled by muscle. So like anything else, if a muscle isn't used to its full extent, it's going to get a little tight. So you're kind of just stretching muscles that are tight from not being used. So if you continue this as like a daily practice, you will find that it improves. So we don't want you to cranking your eyes into that range where it's uncomfortable, but kind of if you're doing it consistently, you'll see some improvements.
And that's a great point, Aaron, because now with the pandemic and everyone working from home or just staying home more, they're watching TV or their laptops or whatever, they're just sort of pointed in one direction. So this is a really timely sort of exercise to do throughout the day, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I found that by doing this, my eye range of motion has really, truly significantly improved. And this is something that, right, we're looking at screens all day, but back in the day when we used to be hunters gatherers, we had to be, and I explained this a little bit in our last workshop, we had to be really still. When an animal was off to our right, we had to be really still, we had to lock our eyes on it, and our body couldn't move or we would scare the animal off. So actually I work with a few clients that do hunt, and I find that their range of motion is so much better than the folks that are staring at a screen all day. So this work does and will improve the range of motion of your eyes. It does and it will improve your vestibular system if you stay consistent with it, just like any other routine. Yeah, so yes, but that eye strain is definitely okay.
So at what point do you think you are sort of pushing it too far with the eye strain?
Yeah, well, I would
versus
say
just, it's just part of the routine. I'll get used to it.
Yeah, so I would say there's going to be a point where you're doing this when you'll start to feel that eye strain. Once you start to blink a lot and your eyes get watery, because that almost always happens when you're at a big range of motion, that's your startle. That's when you take a break. So you typically feel that eye strain, maybe just a few seconds more, and the eyes will start to water and blink, and you just take a break. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, next question. My range of motion and neck is somewhat limited. How do I do some of these movements that that you showed earlier, given that limitation?
Yeah. So I would say, and this also goes, that's a great question. I would say this question also goes for folks that have fusions, whether that's cervical or thoracic, where, again, whether you're holding a pencil or you're using a painting or something in the room, instead of the head movement being big, we can use either two things. You can just keep that to eye movements, where the eyes are moving in all of these directions and your head is just doing as much as you possibly can. Or you can use your environment, being power chair or manual chair, to help you shift back and forth, again, with the wheels or the power chair, so that if I'm moving my whole body and the chair is doing it for me, and I keep my eyes locked on that thing in front of me, you're getting the same benefits. So you can either use the environment you're in, if you're even able to sit on a desk chair, one of those spinning desk chairs, if you want to transfer to that, or in your own wheelchair, or just if you have the fusion, and that means that your whole body needs to be swinging up and down, side to side more, then you can use those.
And to add to what Rachel's saying, so your vestibular system is very adapted to you and what your available mobility and range is. So just whatever is available to you, that's still going to help you prime your own vestibular system. If somebody else has more range of motion, they're going to have to prime theirs in a different way than you're going to have to prime yours. So you're still getting all of the benefits, even if you don't have that full neck range of motion.
Okay, great. Next question. Are there any applications to pain management and sleep deprivation that apply to this sort of modality, I guess?
Yeah, those are really good questions. The pain management question, I'm just going to answer this really generally, is relates more to what I was talking about with your body perceiving threat with certain movements, because of, remember, those blurry GPS signals that are coming in. So the body is going to perceive threat and it's going to tighten, get cautious. Your nervous system is going to elevate to something we call the sympathetic, your fight and flight nervous system. Pain starts kicking in. So in terms of how visual and vestibular work can help with pain, it can sometimes help decrease the goal. One of the goals is to decrease that threat mechanism, to clarify those GPS signals coming in from your visual system, coming in for your vestibular system, send really clear signals to your brain so that your brain understands, okay, this is safe. Lifting my arm overhead is safe. I'm okay. I'm working all of the systems. I'm integrating all the systems. This is a safe movement. And then it creates a more pain-free motor output, being, for example, reaching overhead. So in terms of decreasing pain, generally that's how that works. We're just trying to decrease that threat bucket, that threat threshold almost. For sleep deprivation, and I don't know if there's any studies that show this, but I do know that my clients, myself included, and when I've taken workshops with this, folks usually sleep pretty heavily after doing visual vestibular work. Again, that's kind of been after some more intensive workshops. And I don't know research off the top of my head that shows if this helps with sleep, but I've seen it help with people. I've seen it help with me. I don't know, Erin, do you have any?
I can't speak to anything I know like specifically in research, but anecdotally, I think anytime we are priming our system, that just kind of quiets down like all the extra noise that can prevent you from sleeping. And yeah, I've also, if I'm doing my exercise regularly, I find that I sleep better as well.
Yeah.
Right.
And also as a side note with that, if any of you are familiar with I want to say EMDR. I might have those syllables wrong, but it's basically Psychological therapy is the therapy where your eyes are quickly moving side to side. The therapist that invented that that kind of rapid eye side to side movement therapy developed it because she realized that when she was out on a walk, whether you're walking or moving, whatever you're doing, when you're moving in a certain direction, your eyes are constantly taking in information. Okay, there's a tree, there's the edge of the sidewalk, there's a car, and your eyes are constantly moving up, down, side to side. So she noticed that, she probably did some more research with it. She decided to bring it into the therapy room, which is how that therapy developed. Because she realized she couldn't go on walks with clients. It wouldn't quite work very well. So she brought that into the room and had clients start to do this rapid eye side to side movement, left to right, which she found, and we talked about in last session, is a really good way to calm the nervous system. And when the nervous system is calmer, you're going to sleep better. When you're sitting more in your parasympathetic nervous system, all of your systems are working, they're integrating, they're working more cohesively together, and you do get better sleep. So that I will say that, and I know this is slightly off topic, but that is one example of something that is used in a very direct way, psychologically, to bring you into more of a relaxed nervous system. So that might also be interesting to try before bed if you're having troubles with that.
All right. This is the last question. I'm going to actually add a little bit to it. Folks, I study, all over the web and everywhere about things that we could do to help improve our functionality after a spinal cord injury. And I don't think I've ever heard of the vestibular sort of approach and the whole nervous system training that Rachel and Aaron have taken us through. Having said that, the last question is, why is it that we have not heard of nervous system training as much, as prolific as the typical kind of therapies that you always hear about?
Yeah, that's...
I mean, I think a lot of this, so this kind of stuff is very hard. It's very individual specific. So everyone is going to react differently. Everyone's going to have different things we kind of have to build up and make more efficient. Some people are going to naturally be doing other things better. So because of that, it makes it very difficult to standardize an approach. It makes it very difficult to perform under any amount of research. So you're not going to see scientific papers on this kind of stuff because there's no way you can standardize it across a large group because it is so specific to the individual, which is why it is so beneficial. But it's just really challenging to kind of standardize that approach.
Yeah, although there is a lot more research coming out with that. And I mentioned this in the visual workshop, but one program that is standardizing it in, again, it's not the kind of way they're going through and they're assessing everyone when they're teaching it in a group class setting, but just like we did today, there are ways to work it in a general setting where we still see these movement improvements in whatever you're doing. If you want to check that out, it's Z Health, Z as in the capital letter Z Health. It was started by a guy named Dr. Eric Cobb. And they're doing a lot of research right now just within their own program. And they probably have one of the most extensive video libraries out of any of these kinds of sites that I've seen. And they talk a lot, they do a lot of this visual vestibular work, really emphasizing more of the nervous system training as opposed to other stuff that you may see on a day-to-day basis. So it's not something that you're seeing in the mainstream yet, because research is up and coming. It's there, but it's big time up and coming, and it just hasn't become mainstream yet. I think sometimes these less sexier kinds of movements and rehabilitation tools and whatever it is, they take so much longer to get into the mainstream as opposed to something like CrossFit that just took off because it's these big movements and they're sexy looking and everyone wants to do the big fancy heavy movements as opposed to sit there and hold a pencil and move your eyes around.
So true.
It's
so
coming.
true.
Yeah, it's coming.
Alrighty. Thank you, Rachel and Aaron. Once again, everyone, we'll have the recording of this session available to all of you on Monday at 8 o'clock California time. It will be in your inboxes. And thanks once again to the Reef Foundation for their grant that allows us to produce these types of programs. Thanks for your participation, and thank you again, Rachel and Aaron. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining, everyone. Go vote.
Yes.